Alright, welcome to part 2 of the 800XL with Rapidus, Ultimate 1MB and DVI Sophia. We've got a lot to do, so what I thought would probably be a good idea to get out of the way right now, so we don't have to worry about it later on, is replacing these stock sockets with precision counterparts. If you can hear the noise in the background is the desoldering machine, unfortunately. And we don't proceed until we get the machine to boot up with these new sockets in and work properly, and then we can proceed and put everything back. So we'll just get on with that now. So I guess this will be a speeded up segment because you've seen me desoldering stuff before with the ZD915 desoldering gun, which has been giving me a bit of jip lately, unfortunately. It tends to block up. I've bought spare filters and that kind of thing, but I have to take the damn thing apart and maintain it every 5 minutes, so it is a complete pain in the ass, but I'm gonna forge ahead and hopefully get through this with a minimum of fuss. So let's get on with it. Lead solder just to get things moving a little bit. I've got a different camera set up here, just a little bit of a wider angle view of what's going on, so it's in the way as well, so it's kind of awkward, so please bear with me. You see, this is working fine at the moment, but halfway through the other day I was just halfway through a chip and it was hopelessly clogged up. I will give you this view for a while. Now come on, you've only got two 40-pin sockets to do, little machine. Be nice to me, for Christ's sake. Right, let's do the other CPU. Now I can say this has behaved beautifully today. Thank you, God. Right, I'm gonna clean the end of this a little bit as well, make it some kind of gesture. The little cleaning things appearing in the chamber. Commonly the nozzle gets blocked inside here, and I have to pop this chamber off and get the actual iron tip on it to melt the bung of solder that's built up here. It's absolutely terrible, because it's difficult to take this thing apart. I wish it was a little bit easier to clip this chamber out, because there's already a little nick on the glass at the back here. I'm terrified of actually breaking it. But anyway, so there we go. Now we're going to work our way along these pins and just sort of make sure they've clipped away from the sides here. There we go. Sometimes just heating the back of the pin is sufficient. There we have one removed socket. There we go. That's out with no problems. Alright, so just the other two, and you can see how nice and clean they come out actually. There we are, nice. Yeah, a little bit of minor wicking just to get some of the bits and pieces off, but more or less do a quick visual inspection and whack the new socket in there without having to worry that you've screwed something up badly. Alright, I'm going to get the big guns out here. There we go. There's a few little pins still stuck in there. Oh, a very difficult one, that one actually. Very awkward. Okay, so the hot air there, it's only at I think 300. It just loosened things up quite nicely, and there we go, the result of that removal. Absolutely perfect, no problem whatsoever. Alright, last one. There we go. Let that cool off. And no pins stuck in there, just to give you a little look. Perfect job. Alright. Yeah, that's the right size. Oh, this is the fun part. Of course, although Ultimate 1MB is fitted to the board, we can still put the ICs back and test everything. I've loaded up the tip with a bit of solder here, best I can, just to get the socket to sit properly. There we are, it's anchored in the corners. There we are, and then we can check that it's flat and check that it's the right way around, which it is. Okay, so I've rebooted the computer because I've just installed the drivers for this other camera, so now you should be able to get a nice close look at those solder joints there. But I've got to say, after doing any kind of socketing work, there's always a sigh of relief when you put the chips back in. It still works. Yeah, so I'll put the GTI chip in, and all the other bits that I took out. Oh God, please work, please work. Oh, yeah, boots. Alright, so I've been crimping. I didn't film the crimping. I just hate crimping. I hate crimping, and I don't want to share my hatred of crimping with you on camera. This connector here has 3 signals on it, and it needs to be wired up to 3 different points on the motherboard. One of them's ground, and we can reasonably deduce, if you've got any familiarity with these things, that the square pin right up there is probably going to be the ground pin, but the other 2 are external select and math pack disable. Now, so I couldn't remember which of the other 2 pins, assuming that the square pin is ground, I couldn't remember which of the other 2 pins was external select and which was math pack disable. I mean, on the face of it, it's rather important that we get it right. Alright, so let's have a look on Latharic's website, because I can't remember for the life of me what the pinout is on this little 3-pin connector, and I know that there's something on the website, well, there's bound to be something on the website that shows you how to wire the goddamn thing up. So, okay, so I'm assuming files will have installation manual. Got to go to the FAQ. Okay, so the installation manual must be here, but there used to be one. I'm sure there used to be a picture of the connector with the pin labeling on it. Your CPU is not socketed, blah 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 blah. I'm not seeing pin numbers here. I've looked through that video and there's no mention of the 3-pin connector. I don't think it's even put on. Signal patch. Got anything about the 3-pin connector? It's not even plugged in. No. Step 4, remove CPU out. Step 5, right, Atari 800XL without Freddy chip, which is what we've got. So external select goes to pin 9 as 74LS08. Math pack disable goes to pin 14, I presume it means of the MMU. And ground goes to the ground, obviously. And that's actually the ground, in this case, ground's actually going to go to the Ultimate 1MB. So we know where external select and math pack disable need to go, but which pins are they on the connector? Is it on this picture? No. Alright, so let's have a look at my video from a few years ago where I fit the Rapidus board and find out where I put this damn cable. Ah, here we go, I've plugged something in here. So what we're looking for. Select. Whoa, 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 whoa! Rapidus PDF. What happened to this document? Look, ground, external select and MPD. That's all I wanted. Where the hell's this document gone? Oh, right, finally. So why can't we have this picture somewhere on the website? Back to crimping, unfortunately. So the one that's too short is actually ground. So I'm going to have to take this out. Shit. Right, so I'm going to do one crimped wire. It's going to be a longer version of this one. It's because it's got to reach all the way across from there to there. And hopefully find that that goes in the hole. And it has, and it's secure. I'm going to find some different points for these signals. Last pack disabled, pin 14 of the so where does that come out on the does this come out on the PVI connector anywhere? Right, it goes there. 0 ohms. Right, so MPD is on there, and so it should be somewhere along here. There we go. Aha, aha, aha. Alright, so MPD's just got to go from, an MPD is the furthest right one, so that's got to go from there to there. Ah, that's fine. These make rather more sense as places to pick these signals up, given that the board's all the way over here. So I think we'll mark them off. So it's that one for MPD and that one for external select. But I won't trim them yet, just in case I'm wrong and these do in fact need to go to chip legs or nearabouts. Okay, and I don't really need to put that on yet anyway. Now, what I do need to do is remove this knife before I injure myself. Right, now what we do need to do is test this ultimate 1 megabyte. And alright, put this back in, and if this doesn't work, it's basically guaranteed to be the ribbon cables that I made, I would say. I got a grey screen. Okay, so it gets so far and hangs. Nice. So as I say, it makes sense to suspect the cabling initially, so I'm going to test some stock cables, and in fact with a different board. Okay, so it doesn't appear to be the cables, because the different Ultimate 1 megabyte board and a different set of cables exhibit the exact same behavior. So isn't that good? Let's try and take these signals for Ultimate 1 megabyte from a different spot on the board, will we? There's also a little hookup point there which I've just soldered in for the Ultimate 1 megabyte signal, so correction to the prior video where I said that the supplied wire wasn't long enough. It would actually be long enough because it can go from there to there, so apologies for that. That was incorrect. You can, it's perfectly possible to run that supplied wire from there to there. So after a pause of actually some hours, at least a couple of hours, while I messed around with a lot of bullshit trying to figure out what was wrong with this thing, I tried off camera some of it. I tried this cable, which is a remake of the first OS-ROM cable I did. I tried the original OS-ROM cable. I tried a different original OS-ROM cable. I tried the original MMU cable. I tried a different Ultimate 1 megabyte, and then I tried another different Ultimate 1 megabyte. I tried a different Adaptus. I tried a different Adaptus cable. I reflowed all the soldering under the sockets, and still the machine would only get as far as the initial Sparta DOS X boot screen, and then hang halfway through displaying the version number for DOS. I wasn't best pleased, particularly since at the time the Rapidus board wasn't even installed yet. You would expect problems when Rapidus is present, but not particularly when it's not even in the machine yet. I tried a different CPU. I tried a F08 chip instead of the 74LS08. Didn't make any difference. What did seem to make a difference is the length of the OS-ROM cable. I've got this idea that with the shorter cable, which didn't actually go far enough to reach the adjacent board, it would sometimes boot. With this cable it wouldn't boot at all. And I even emailed Atari for ideas. But the one idea I had, and I mentioned to him, was that instead of taking the Ultimate 1MB symbols from either of these little headers here, I tried both positions. It doesn't really make any difference aside from the fact that if you take the Ultimate 1MB signals from here, they've already had to travel along this cable. I thought I'd try taking the Ultimate 1MB additional signals from the usual places that I pick rather than here. The main reason being that I wanted a buffered clock signal, buffered O2 signal, and I take it from down here. There's a little via just underneath here, and I'm not the only one who thinks this. Jürgen has remarked on the same phenomenon, that sometimes picking up the clock from a different area on the motherboard, preferably a buffered one, can make a big difference when you have instability issues with the machine. I tried it again and it did boot. Well, it booted about one time, or it booted about 9 times out of 10, let's say. But it's getting there. It's better than it was. And the other thing I did was shorten this cable here, because if we have a look at what's provided, it's this long, and even when this is kind of folded up in some manner like I've done here, it's too long. There's only 2 places you can fit one of these, and that's an 800XL and possibly a 600XL. I don't know if anybody's done that yet. In neither case does this cable need to be this long, so I had to shorten it by dismantling the strain relief and the whole connector, because I don't have a spare connector like this. So I managed to shorten this cable, which I thought would go some way to reducing the overall capacitance on the bus on this system. And finally I plugged in the Rapidus board underneath the CPU just to see if it would still boot. So it sometimes hangs there, or it did sometimes hang there. What a goddamn nightmare. And yeah, it's been a while since I installed Rapidus. I'm not gonna apportion blame, although there are other issues that I'm expecting to see here with this Rapidus board, and we shall see if they still persist when it's alongside Ultimate 1MB. The amount of faff on is considerable, just to get the machine to boot. And I didn't even have Rapidus installed in the board when I was experiencing problems getting the machine to boot. It'll be largely because of all this ribbon cable, this profusion of ribbon cable, and there's not really any way around it. And I'm not going to put the Ultimate 1MB board here and just lie it across the top of what's underneath it. It's ridiculous. So the only place that can reasonably go on the XL when this area is occupied is over here. And we have to have the ribbon cables to join the two things together, and the ribbon cables have to avoid the cartridge port. Yeah, so any distance we can save with ribbon cables, i.e. shortening this thing, I think was well worth doing. Yeah, to waste 3 hours on this timing problem already, when this board wasn't even in the machine yet, is just... I'm not going to shorten these at the moment, because I just want to be absolutely certain first that these are the optimum places to pick the signals off. I may have to move things around just to get the machine to start. In a way I miss that bigger desk, but oh god, I just couldn't live with it. Couldn't live with it. Okay, so that'll do. So let's see what happens now. Right, so it doesn't start at all now. I made a mistake with the wiring, or what? Right, so it boots when I take this off. Oh my god. Okay, so our primary issue here, if we just have a look at the screen. And look how stable the machine is. Oh yes, look at it. Look how stable it is. But yeah, the primary issue is that the PBI ID was clashing with the Rapidus. I don't know why this ships with the side hardware enabled out of the box. It should come straight to the BIOS menu when you turn it on for the first time. If it's been tested before, just take the battery out. And so we've got some problems here, as you can see. Isn't this nice? But anyway, let's see if it will now boot. Oh, yes. Marvellous. Ah, look at that. Isn't that just great? Rapidus work fine with Ultimate 1MB. Yes, the two should work together no problem. And I've had one of these things for the past 4 years and it still doesn't f***ing well work properly. Or can anybody else observe the fact that after 5 minutes of running the machine, you press the reset button and the fucking machine cold boots itself for no reason? Just because there's an Ultimate 1MB. Anybody else observe this behaviour? Would somebody like to test it? Oh yeah, I'll test it sometime, I'll test it. Where's the fucking test results? And nobody ever got back to me. Am I the only one who suffers this problem with one of these boards in 6-7 different machines? Try a different PSU. Power supply? Are you f***ing kidding me? It's 3 amps. But anyway, let's hope that this is going to turn out just beautiful. Alright, so I've quickly temporarily rigged everything up so that we can test the Sofia DVI. I've had to put the Sophia on a stacked socket here, which is not going to work out long term at all once I have to put this back in the case. The reason being that it hits the 74LS158 directly behind the GTI chip. And yes, I specifically want to thank Pasu for being, who designed and produces Sophia, for being so helpful during, as they say, this difficult time. Yeah, but he's been super helpful. He could not have been nicer when I was getting hold of it, because I needed 2 of these. So let's turn the machine on. Have you got a signal? Have you got anything? Yes. We've got DVI. And we got a picture. Have you got a boot? We've got a boot. The machine is pretending to work while it's being filmed. It's absolutely incredible. Alright, so we've got the board back in the case because I want to take some measurements. I want to see how high above the board the bottom of the hole for the RF modulator is, and it's about 4mm. The bottom of the board basically wants to be 4mm off the deck. Well, now we've got about 2 pins, yes, about 2 pins there at the back which we can use, and obviously we need these at the back. There's another 3 pins here. Oop, where's the camera? There it is. Come on, focus, you son of a bitch. Right, so 3 pins at the back. Yes, it'll actually have to be those 2. That second row of 2 pins there. So that second row of 2 pins, they line up more or less with this lug at the back here. So we're going to use them. So that's another pair of pins. So that's actually about the right height. So if we were to drop that in here, that's actually going to be spot on. So if we put the other 2 on.
John?
Yes?
I'm YouTube on my phone.
What?
YouTube.
Yeah.
On my phone, and I'm going to put on the telly.
Yeah. Hang on.
You know why?
No, hang on. Alright, I've managed to attach this bloody DVI connector. It was very difficult because, of course, I screwed up a bit earlier on when I took the RF modulator out and managed to heave the plate throughout the back of the board. So I had to work from the top. So I inserted pins into, if we have a look here, these rearmost 2 vias on the little adapter board, and the only one at the other end that would line up was one here. So it's supported on 5 pins basically. It's strong enough that you can hang the board off, so it looks like it's going to be good enough. We'll mark off where this is going to have to go. Alright, so that's the rough hole. As you can see, it needs to be a little bit taller, a little bit higher, but it will look nice and balanced when it's finished. That's the bottom of the PCB, you can see there. And there we go, there's the DVI connector mounted on the board, poking through the hole. Still needs a little bit of dressing, but it's basically done. And next to it is the hole for the headphone jack. There we are, which I have beveled, and that's going to have an aluminium backing plate put there to fill the void. Alright, so I've done a little bit of off-camera work on this board. Got the DVI board, the Sophia board, sitting flat without the extra socket. So I took the 74LS158 out of its socket that was immediately behind the Sophia board there, and just soldered it directly into the board, so that enabled that board to lie flat. I've hooked up this headphone jack here. I bought several of these because I figured I was going to need them a while ago. I've hooked that up to, there was a nice via there for audio and obviously ground connection, and I shorted the left and right channel pins together there with a little bit of resistor leg wire. So obviously we've got the single channel coming out in the left and right channels. Wired up 5 volts on the PBI. I've put the chroma on the video jack, and of course I've used the what I forgot to show you is I used a cut out Coke can, aluminium can, and I made myself a little blanking plate there, which I've just put in front of the DVI connector, so we can hold it the right way up so you don't have to. There we go, so it's nice. So that just a piece of aluminium with a hole cut out the correct size, and then with some overhang enough to fill the aperture, and then I punched a couple of holes in where these little bolts go in and screwed them in, and I think it looks very nice. Headphone jack comes out here. I just have to, I thought about putting a connector on it, but I mean it's not, if you need to take the board out of the case you can just undo this little screw. It could be, that could actually prevent the board from coming out anyway, so you're going to have to take it off to get the board out of the case. Ultimate board on top. And it still boots. Well, that's good, and we got audio as well, which is rather nice. It didn't manage to lock onto the signal in time to get the, there we go, Rapidus core loading. Okay, regarding the earlier rant about Rapidus and Ultimate 1MB in the same machine, I'm going to turn the machine on and I'm going to test for this behaviour, said behaviour being pressing system reset on the SpartaDOS X command line prompt, causing a spontaneous cold reboot. So I've turned the machine on here. This is in legacy mode, so we're running off the 6502. And just allow the machine to boot up. This is booting up from cold, and exactly the same state that it was in when I finished it. I'm going to hit the reset key on the keyboard. And as you can see, the machine cold resets.
Oh God!
So this is right out of the box, clay cold, as they say. It hasn't even had to have time to warm up yet. So this is exactly the behaviour I would expect. Exactly the behaviour that hasn't been investigated at all by anybody apart from myself. Exactly the behaviour I've observed 90% of the time. I think there was a machine I built with Rapidus on video in 2017, and it did eventually exhibit this behaviour, but I kind of ameliorated the problem with swapping CPUs and that kind of thing, which is basically what I'm going to have to do here. If we go into basic, and let's press reset there, and it even reboots itself from basic. It's extraordinary. So let's go into the Rapidus setup menu, and let's go into Rapidus mode. Okay, So we've got the 65, C816 operating system, etc. So we're booting now in high speed 20 megahertz mode. Why are we getting a boot error? What is the meaning of this? Alright, that's good. That's good. Press reset. Oh, and this time it decided to cold reboot. So and now it gets a boot error. Alright, so I've tidied up the board here. I've cleaned up the wiring somewhat. I've put cable ties on and things. I revised the locations for the ultimate 1 megabyte pickoffs. Really because I'm just trying to keep the signal paths as short as possible. So we don't have long distances of traces and wires, particularly going between A and B, which I thought was probably a good idea, given the fact we've encountered this, I have to say, very typical system reset issue here. I would love nothing more than to actually just give you a tour of the capabilities of the device, but that's going to make the video incredibly long. And the other thing is I'd rather try and get the machine stable. So I'm gonna demonstrate this again, and I'm gonna list the things that I've tried, the measures that I've taken to try and combat this issue. The case has been cleaned, so it all looks splendid. So we have ROM checksum or RAM parity test failure, system halted, press reset to reboot. This is running in an accelerated mode at the moment. For some reason I can't get into the Rapidus menu. There we go, finally we're in here. So I don't know what, we'll just try this. Configuration, standard Rapidus configuration. So yeah, I've shortened ribbon cables, I shortened the cable going from the CPU to the adapters, I shortened all the signal cables, I tried different hookup points for the signal cables, I measured the voltage from the power supply, it was 5.28 volts, to 3 amp power supply for a device server. I tried a different CPU, I tried different 74LS08, I tried 74F08, I tried a different ultimate 1 megabyte, just an endless series of fixes. Nothing really changed anything. So if I press system reset here, it actually works. So there we go. So that's something good. So this appears to work in accelerated mode at the moment. That's good enough for me. That's great. So let's go back into the Rapidus menu and let's go to classic mode and see how this behaves. Alright, so let's press reset here, see what happens, and the system reboots itself. So I'm out of ideas at this point. I kind of thought something would have changed, something would have magically rectified itself for these past 2 years. I've even tried plugging the damn power supply into different power points around the house just in case. Nothing makes any difference. I've got an NCR CPU that I tried in here, and it's actually worse. And the NCR CPUs are the ones that I thought were probably recommended for this thing. If we actually turn off Rapidus, what is this gonna? So we'll turn it off. Can the user actually use the machine without this issue when Rapidus is disabled entirely? That's pretty interesting, and the system completely dies when you press enter. Oh, look at this, marvelous, fantastic. So this is kind of the best we can do with ultimate 1 megabyte and Rapidus. I don't know, I'm kind of out of ideas now. Can we get into the configuration? Well, it's turned off, so we shouldn't. So I can't actually get into the ultimate 1 megabyte menu now. Oh, there we are. So it's actually better with the Rapidus co-enabled than it is when it's turned off. So if you install these things together and you don't have this problem, more power to you, I say. I'm yet to hear from anyone who's tested this and given me a straight answer, yes or no, whether it works. ROM checksum errors and various fatal crippling errors. I don't know what the hell's going on. If you think this is a terrible installation, well, you know, please let me know. I'll give you a 360-degree tour. And very nice it looks too. So even after all these years, I'm working from the same lack of information about what is actually causing the problem. We can only assume it's some sort of a clock or timing issue, signal edges. I did have some quite long discussions with Jürgen at the time, I seem to remember, or possibly Hyas as well. I spoke to quite a few different people about it at the time. And I spoke to Passu as well for a short while, trying to discuss this problem. But they kind of seem to have fallen off the radar a bit, and I don't see much about Rapidus on forums, and I don't see much about Rapidus on YouTube. Now, just to be absolutely crystal clear, I'm talking about Rapidus when coupled with Ultimate 1MB. That's when the problems that I've observed seem to exhibit themselves. So the people who want Rapidus tend to want Ultimate 1MB at the same time, because Ultimate is the preeminent RAM upgrade at the moment. And I'm sure there are some people out there who would still like to propagate the idea that the actual issue and the reason that these strange spontaneous cold boots happen is because of a problem between the chair and the desk when the device gets installed in my house by my hands. Quite how I would have the ingenuity to make things behave this way every single goddamn time, I really don't know. But I think people who've been watching this channel long enough and are familiar with what I do will realise that that's a load of bullshit. When I was first sent Rapidus, I was asked to use it and test it and share my experiences with it, and I did, and the experiences were the wrong experiences, unfortunately. So anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this, the build up till this point. And I hope you'll join me in the next video where we'll properly evaluate the finished machine, test it and see if we can work out some of these little bugs, and hopefully have something that we can send back and feel good about. So that's all for me for now, and I hope you'll join me in the next video, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.